Hi, it's John from North Star Nursery Garden Home, your coastal gardener. It's clearly a full moon. The animals were crazy last night and technology is just running amok. So sorry we're late. I wanted to talk to you about citrus care, pruning, pests, stuff like that. And I brought my one of my citrus from home, the smaller of the two, because I have a bigger one that I could not lift and put in my truck. So this is a Meyer lemon. I actually pruned it quite aggressively in, I want to say it was probably December. This lives in a greenhouse, so it does look kind of nice, but there are some problems within this plant that I'm going to identify for you. First off, what I wanted to show you is a few problems that are, so this, I'm not sure if you can see that silvery, shiny, that is snail tracks. And you see that leaf that's all chewed up? That's from the snails and the slugs. They love citrus. They just chewed this baby up. Now, I know you're shocked that a nursery owner has snails and slugs, but let me tell you, we're all fighting the battle. I have no secret weapon other than Sluggo Plus, and so clearly I need to put some more down around the base of my citrus tree. The other thing, this happened in the mid-season, and it was actually, the interesting thing was this was kind of attached to itself, and there was a little caterpillar that was making a little web in there. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today as far as pruning and kind of opening things up is to help mitigate things like this. If we have an environment that's all nice and cozy, and a lot of these branches, even though I pruned, are starting to push new ones, and we don't always want all of those new little branches because they make things kind of warm and cozy and very inviting for pests. The other thing I need to say is in the process of pulling this out, the backside that was up against the greenhouse wall, I did not notice I had aphids. So, you know, gardening is a challenge at times, so we just have to keep our eyes on things and kind of investigate things as we go. Now, it wasn't a big aphid issue. If it had been a big aphid issue, and I hear a lot of customers talk about this, they'll talk about the fact that the leaves look black, and when you touch them, they're sticky, but it's all black. Now, what that is from is what is called the frass, or in non-technical terms, the poop, from aphids, from mealybug, from scale. And what that is it's a sweet, sticky substance. It would be like anytime you use the maple syrup, you get it on your hands. It's just inevitable. So that coats the leaves, and then what happens is mold spores drop from the air, and they get stuck on that sweet, sticky stuff. And that sugar in the sweet, sticky stuff actually feeds the mold. So you end up with leaves that are absolutely black and almost fuzzy looking. That is sooty mold. Now, you can't just spray sooty mold off. It takes wiping off. So if you had a big problem, I would say go through and prune what you need to prune, and then whatever's left, go ahead and wipe off with a soft rag with rubbing alcohol, or you could rub it off with neem oil if you wanted as an extra protectant. That does help with pests like aphids and other sucking insects. And we'll go over pest management later on. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and kind of clean this up. I'm going to do it a little bit on the fast side because it's really hard for David to get in here and probably see everything. But what I'm going for is, like this branch here I had left this branch alone, and this winter, this popped out. So I'm trying to get rid of anything that is pointing down, okay? There's a new one over here that's also pointing down that I'm going to get rid of. I'm also going to get rid of anything that's congestion. This is just a little dead branch. These two are doing fine heading where they need to head. But what I might do is actually prune to an outside node to encourage that growth again that way. What we're trying to do as we do this is build a structure that will actually support a lemon. They get quite large, and if the stems are not strong enough, they won't support it. So the more we go through and kind of guide it in the right direction, and also when we're tipping it back, it sends more energy to this stem, which helps it develop. This little stem, a lot of these little tiny ones you can just knock off with your finger if you want to. You don't have to prune them. But again, anything, this is how I do it, anything that's pointing down and anything that's making things congested. I want to try to keep this area as open as possible. Ooh, I had that little Brady Bunch crack in my voice. This is another one. All of these little branches are pointing into the center here. We're going to go ahead and eliminate those because, and actually ironically, not ironic, it's spot on. This was the area where the aphids were, where all of that congestion was. So if I was doing my due diligence, I would have already cleaned it up a long time ago and those aphids wouldn't even happen. So this has really thinned out a lot, and I'm going to go ahead and prune to another outside node. There's another little branch that's sticking out here. I'm actually going to eliminate that because I really want to open this little baby up because I do not want to have a repeat performance on pests. Again, anything pointing down, we're getting rid of. Anything that's just a new little shoot that's kind of tucked in the middle. And anything that's kind of competing with other branches. Now, this is all new growth. And again, I'm just going to cut to an outside node so that that develops more. I don't mind developing this area more. I'm going to get rid of all the little ones that are pointing down. It's kind of very meditative, I think, to prune. Especially if you just approach it slowly. And it's important to approach it slowly and kind of step back from time to time. Make sure you're not, it's easy when you're doing it to get out of control and just kind of prune like crazy. So check yourself every 5 minutes or so and make sure you're heading in the direction you want to head in. Okay. I'm not going to finish doing this, but you get the gist. You want to clean up any dead, diseased, or dying branches. You want to prune anything that's pointing down. And then the other thing to consider is sometimes, and I know this is hard, there's never really a great time to prune citrus because you're always fighting with the possibility that you're going to get rid of flowers. And so a lot of customers have a hard time with that. So if you kind of stay on it, I would say visit your citrus at least every 2 months or so and kind of see what they're doing and make sure they're heading in the direction you want them to head in. Also, I wanted to point out we did get citrus in. This is a Meyer lemon, and this is very happy. If I were to take this home to my house right now, I would immediately prune it because there's all these new growth nodes, and I'm going to prune to all outward pointing leaf nodes so that we start that training of that structure immediately. Do not hesitate because they will do what they want to do. And then if those branches get really big and the citrus starts to grow on it, it's not going to be strong enough to support that weight. So I would probably also thin out this area here that has some congestion. I can't see it from that way, so I'm just going to come in and do this in a stealth way. It's a hard one to cut. And then personal preference for me, I like to have mine a little bit high-headed. So I kind of try to keep the head all in one area and prune off any of the lower stems that are coming out. Okay, let's talk about fertilizer. Now, I have said this until I'm blue in the face, and everybody's always shocked by this. Citrus on the coast, this is very important. The coast is different than inland. Inland meaning 5-10 miles inland. Here on the coast, if you follow the guideline that says to only fertilize during the growing season, you're going to end up with an ugly looking citrus by the time spring starts, and then it'll be a gorgeous citrus by the time winter hits. And then you'll have to start that whole process over again. So what I do is I fertilize every single month during the year. Every month. Now, it can look like a few different things. You can use Maxi. Great fertilizer. I use it for a lot of things. If I just pruned this and I kind of wanted to give it a hit to kind of get it growing quicker, I would always use a water-soluble fertilizer. This gets into the system much quicker than, let's say, a dry formulation. Takes a little bit longer to kind of break down. So if you have a plant that's not doing what you want it to do and you want to give it a kick in the butt, Maxi's the answer. Now, you can use the all-purpose. This is part of my pantry basics. So I always make sure I have this and Sure Start and a few other things on hand. Also, you can use the rose and flower. If you're not getting enough blooms for yourself, you want more blooms, which of course equates to more lemons, then go ahead and use the rose and flower. It is a little lower in nitrogen. So if your citrus is yellow, which 90% of the citrus is yellow if you're not fertilizing on a monthly basis, then you're not fertilizing enough. So more fertilizer, more nitrogen. The granular can also be used. This, I would say you could probably use every other month because it does, once it breaks down, it lasts a little bit longer in the system. In a plant like this, I would probably make 3 pilot holes and put about 1/4 cup in each hole. You want to give it something to work off of for the time ahead. So this would be every other month if you did it that way. If you're just going to throw some on the top, then it's going to have to be every month. So consider that. The other one that I love, I don't have the citrus one in the Job's Organics because they were out of stock. They're shipping them out hopefully soon. These stakes are incredibly helpful. I use them at the house on my citrus and on, on a container this size. This is about, I want to say it's an 18-inch pot. I would use 3 stakes. I know that sounds like a lot, but remember, we're dealing with a very, very hungry plant, and they will definitely use that. And these get replaced every 6 months. So if you have an old-time calendar on the wall like I do, or if you want to set it off a phone reminder for yourself on your calendar on your phone to replace these things. It's really important for us to try to simplify things for ourselves. So I really find setting myself reminders or making notes helps me to kind of stay on track. Also, the other option for what I call the lazy gardener, which is me sometimes, this is Osmocote, and this is a balanced formula that lasts 4 months. So you would reapply this 3 times a year. And on something like this, I would probably do 3 pilot holes, and I would probably do 2 to 3 tablespoons per hole. Remember, you want to give it enough to kind of work on. The reason we do pilot holes is because that gets the fertilizer to the root zone much quicker. So I know it seems like an extra step, but on citrus, you want to give it as much of the benefit as possible. Now, pests. So, I think I might have to shift over here, David. On pests, so we talked earlier about the whole sooty mold and ants. I had a woman in the other day who said she finally threw her citrus out because it was just so covered with ants. So that is a correctable issue. You definitely want to think ahead of it. And the one way you think ahead of it is by getting these lovely little liquid ant bait stakes. I put one of these at the base of the trunk of my citrus in the greenhouse, outside, doesn't matter, because what you want is when the ants are bringing, you're going to laugh at this, when the ants bring the insects up, and they do, not sure if you ever saw that cartoon called Ants, they actually farm the poop from the aphids, from the mealybug, and from the scale. And because they farm it, they're actually bringing babies up into the plant and placing them on the leaves so that they can feed and then collect the good stuff, which doesn't help us. So ant stakes are very important. Did you have a question, David? Okay. So usually if you're having a problem with scale or mealybug, you want to use horticultural oil. This is very different. This is very important from neem oil. Okay? Horticultural oil is required in order to suffocate the scale and or the mealybug. The scale and the mealybug tend to be a little bit more resilient to the neem oil because it's not a suffocant. And we want to suffocate them. Now, when you spray the scale, it will not just fall off. It's very much like an abalone shell. So it has this whole little colony under the shell, and they're holding on for dear life. And so they are stuck to that stem. So after you spray, if you wanted to, you could do some physical removal. Usually the scale has a tendency to change color after you spray it, which is also a sign that you've achieved your goal. But you definitely, for any of those kind of really hardcore insects like scale and mealybug, you really want to use oil. If, on the other hand, you have little chewing insects, not really chewing, sucking insects like aphids, or sometimes I've even used the neem oil for that little caterpillar problem that happens from time to time. So this is what you would use for that. The neem oil is great because it does affect soft-bodied insects. Again, remember, whenever you're spraying, you want to make sure you water 24 hours beforehand, and you want 3 spray applications. It's kind of like doing antibiotics. You have to do the full course because what you want to make sure is you're getting the initial problem in total. The second spray is for the babies that might have hatched since then. And the third one is actually a precautionary measure. So that's for that. The other thing you want to consider for sure is Sluggo Plus that goes at the base of the plant. A little goes a long way. So you don't need to put a lot of material out. Just like in a pot this size, it would be like half a teaspoon. It's really a small amount, and you just sprinkle it out lightly. If you see these little moldy things after you've watered and you've spread the Sluggo Plus, it's the Sluggo Plus. It has stuff in it that just seems to want to grow mold. And so in our area, that happens a lot because we're really moist. So it's still effective. It's still doing its job. So don't freak out. Nothing weird's happening. You're fine. But Sluggo Plus for snails, slugs, and earwigs. And the snails and slugs adore citrus. On just a quick note, if you're having problems with frost, this is wilt-proof. Wilt-proof? Yeah, wilt-proof. This is something you can spray on the plant, on the leaves, and what it does is it insulates the leaves. It keeps it from transpiring moisture, It also helps with frost protection. But if you have a problem with, let's say it's the citrus and you're not able to water it as often as you want to, if you spray this, that helps to decrease that transpiration. So that's going to actually buy you days in between watering. So you can use that. And what I would say if you're doing it for that is maybe apply every 2 to 3 months, just to make sure that you're insulating it. Okay, I think that's everything. It's kind of a long video. Sorry, guys. Hopefully you're doing great. Can I just say the new product coming in from, we have a new vendor that we just started with, and it's incredible. We have some really gorgeous Japanese maples. We have some ginkgo trees. So you really should just stop by the nursery because there's a lot going on. So we will see you here and hope you have a great day.